Hi, my name is Skip Ritchie. I'm a licensed professional counselor, and I've been asked by the Revival School director, Mike Ramsey, just to talk a little bit about cultural sensitivity and understanding and responding to youth behaviors. Basically, you guys have been asked to be volunteers or paid mentors or tutors for young adolescents or young adults. And there's several things to be mindful of, and one I think in this population is a variety of cultures that are coming to the Revival School on Friday nights, and things to think about. There's several questions to ask yourself and maybe even ponder over a couple days. How sensitive are you to your own views of those who are different from you? Do your views of other cultures, do you see them as equally as valuable as your culture? Is your cultural group superior to another? Are you culturally sensitive to your own heritage and the possibility that you were maybe taught things even unconsciously that would be considered hurtful or would not honor the dignity and image-bearing status of another person? Are you ever thinking in terms of a group in a stereotypical way, or are you prone to labeling? How well do you monitor your own assumptions about your strengths and weaknesses and other cultures' strengths and weaknesses? And in this context of working with young adults, are you thinking through ways to connect to their culture in a meaningful way that affirms the beauty of their culture, but also is open to the idea that there is room for critique of a culture as well, where the cultural values or cultural priorities are in conflict with what we would consider love, in conflict with what we would consider is safe. And so ultimately there can be things that can be brought up in a conversation with a mentee, one where you could honor the strengths of their culture, their beauty of their culture, but also ask them to think about and more of a questioning, wondering whether what their actions or their behaviors or the way they've responded to some issue is showing love. Is it creating an environment of safety for others? Is it building up dignity? Is it respectful? And one of the things as a mentee, some of the best learning happens on a one-on-one relationship. So, and many times when you're dealing with the children, you can think of terms of a triangle. Basically, they have thoughts, they have behaviors, and they have feelings, where all those three connect. And so when there's an issue, for them to be aware and gain insight into the idea of what they're thinking, how they're behaving or acting, and what is going on inside of them. And just one of the biggest concepts for a counselor is the idea that how well do you emotionally regulate when faced with stress? What do you do? For example, do you fight? Do you fly or flight? They say the amygdala, that's part of the brain that helps us to deal when there's an emergency, so that we have strength to fight or strength to flee. So when we're in a fun group and we're learning, we're doing music, we're doing dance, that amygdala, that fight-flight response may be over-utilized in the past by the children because as a child they had to survive. So they're very quick maybe to get angry or maybe very quick to hit or to fight. Part of that, what you're doing is you're going to help them to move away from the fight-flight response to a more reasoned response, a more logical response, a more, we call it perceiving or wondering response. Instead of judging and quickly coming up with a critical assessment or conclusion, actually asking lots of questions so that you can better understand a person, so that you can help them and also you can guide them. And so one of the things as a counselor, we call it the CBT triangle, it's cognitive behavioral therapy. That's basically thinking about the thoughts, the behaviors, and the feelings and how they interact. One of the ways I think you can help children is to rehearse or role play a scenario, an issue that comes up on a regular basis. And I've seen in the past at Revival School, there's definitely some interaction between the boys and the girls, or the young men and the young women. And maybe it's attention-getting techniques like smacking them and then running. Some of those you might say, okay, let's talk about that triangle. What are you thinking? Well, maybe you're thinking that they don't like you or they're not paying attention to you. What is your behavior? You're going up to them and you're smacking them or hitting them. What is your feeling? What is driving you to want their attention? And some of it's sadness. You want to be included and you're not included, you feel rejected. Being able to voice those, having insight into those feelings, that's what a mentor will help a person do. And then thinking about it in cultural terms too, because their culture, they may view something very differently than our culture here in the U.S. or our subculture in the U.S. Now, when we're thinking about safety, we need to think about in terms of what makes someone feel comfortable to be real or to be honest. They say sometimes in St. Louis, for real. Well, we want you to be for real. And to be for real, you have to feel safe and you have to feel welcome. And you have to feel like your opinion and your views are valued. That's really important to good counseling. That's called empathetic listening or active listening. Now, part of what you're going to help kids do, and it's a big thing, which is to affirm each other. See the good in each other, the good character in each other, the beautiful things about them, so that they lean more on the positive in their relationship than they do on the critique or on the criticism or critical nature. Teaching them to receive criticism and not to take it personally, but to take it as someone trying to help them to grow. Taking criticism and teaching them that it can be a positive thing, not something to get angry about, but something to receive. Now, one of the biggest things you're going to see in your time here at Revival School is there will be conflict. It is the nature of humans to have conflict. So what we want to always teach people is, what do you do with conflict? Well, one of the first things you do is you start positive. You pick out good things that you can recognize in a person. You be specific, you be prompt, you be warm, and you strive at least to give 6 or 7 compliments for 1 critique. So build them up. You were dancing. Your dress and your outfit was beautiful. Your smile was striking. Go through some positive things. Character. You've been careful not to take too much time. You've shared the stage. All those things, and then come to the one point where maybe they're struggling. That's called a critique. That should be maybe 10% or 20% of the conversation, and the rest should be positive. Now, levels of positive and negative reinforcement. One of the things that a counselor battles between is what appropriate intervention will help with a child grow. And one of the things that we've seen as counselors, and I've seen as counselors, is intrinsic motivation. Do it because it's the right thing. It's the best for you. It's the best for your overall health. Not because you're going to get a treat, not because you're going to get a piece of pizza. Those are good. Those are rewards. Those are external rewards. But having them want to do it because it's the right thing, just for internal reasons, is the best driving force that you can give to a child, because that sustains them when there aren't any treats, when there aren't any rewards. They learn to take pride in doing what is good, what is right. And then finally, when there is a conflict, we want to help them role play through it. And we call that conciliation, mediation, where maybe you have even another person in the middle trying to help people resolve that. And what I've asked the kids to do is think about in terms of what causes the conflict, kind of be ready for it, maybe even can prep them. We know for sure that the children are going to come there, some of them will be tired, fatigue, they're going to see cultural misunderstandings. Many times the children will use a word in one language and actually has a negative or bad meaning and sounds very similar to another word in another language. So letting them know that not to quickly assume that the words they're using are to hurt you. Also, to help them understand that there will be competition at times, and that through competition we grow, but also it can cause conflict, because obviously someone is going to be recognized as being better than another person in some area. So what do? Well, we think about what are the positive outcomes for conflict that is resolved in a healthy way. Well, we become wiser, we grow in the process, we have a better, clear vision of what we want and what we're trying to accomplish. We learn to communicate in a better and more clear way. And a lot of times we have stronger relationships at the end because we've worked through something together. Now, when we think about reconciliation or conciliation, sometimes we use the term as peacemaking. Well, we can have peace with each other, we can have peace inside, and we can have peace with God. So ultimately we want to be open to having conversations about all three of those, because those all have distinctives, but they also have an overlap too. So when we are working with kids and children and young adults, we really want to emphasize that this peace, inner peace, peace with others is important. And that the word peace or shalom is something that takes effort. It's not easy. One of the things that in Orthodox Christianity, there's this idea when we have a conflict with someone, we have a dispute, we've been offended. The scriptures teach us to think about what is the log in our own eye, or what's the problem that we have caused, to focus on first before we look to see about the problem that someone else has in there. And so they say, get the log out of your own eye, or out of your vision, before you pick the speck from someone else's eye. And that to me is very important, because if we start with us taking responsibility before, we create a situation where we hopefully show that we care about the person, that we possibly want to actually strengthen the relationship, and that we care that at the end of the dispute that we will actually have worked something out so that there's a better understanding. So when a counselor's meeting with kids, there'll be times when there'll be two parties or maybe three, where you'll need to create a framework where they will see that the goal will be coming together but resolving honestly the misunderstanding, the dispute, the offense. And when we think about the idea that each culture has its beautiful distinctives, there are going to be many, many misunderstandings until they get to know each other. So be prepared for conflict, be prepared to educate, be prepared to role model, be prepared to train, be prepared to be aggressive, knowing that they're going to have emotions, they're going to have feelings, they're going to have thinking that is not going to be the same as other children. And they're going to be working and trying to become better musicians, better dancers, better guitar players, better drummers. And through that interaction, they are learning to be connected with each other and learning to work together. And it's not going to be easy, but there's going to be many rewarding aspects to your time with them. So there's times where I tell people, you do the timeout and you pull away one-on-one and you reestablish your trust and honesty with each mentee, to the point that they're now willing to open up and share exactly what's going on. So I just want to compliment you and thank you for helping Revival School. And if you have any questions, feel free to call me.